We're watching a very high-class player.
This is when you know AB de Villiers is at his best.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to another 360 Live show. Good to have you all on here. We're going to be covering a lot of the cricket news. As we know, the World Cup started. We had a fantastic first off game between New Zealand and England. Not so much for England, obviously losing out there big time to New Zealand. And New Zealand may be getting a bit of revenge after that 2019 World Cup final. It's a great start for them. The game happened at Ahmedabad, and the wicket looked fantastic. I thought England never had enough on that wicket. And we'll discuss a little bit more about both innings and how England ultimately ended up on the wrong side of the result. There's also quite a few other things happening, and I would like you guys to help me out here today with questions. So please post your questions below in the descriptions box, and we'll be having a lot of fun here today discussing all kinds of topics, but in particular the ICC Cricket World Cup for men, which kickstarted. There's another game up to date. We know Pakistan running out there. We've discussed them in length in the last few months, all the preparation woes they had, but hopefully they will kickstart their tournament with a good first up game. I think they're playing Netherlands, and that's all happening today. So post your questions and let's have a bit of fun here today. I'm also going to be taking a lot of questions from you guys, and I want us all to focus on that World Cup. So since 2007, the team with the first centurion has won the World Cup. Ponting in 2007, Sehwag in 2011, Finch in 2015, and Root in 2019. How's that for a stat? So Conway scoring that 100 yesterday is putting New Zealand in that bracket. Very interesting stat that I just read there for you guys. Unfortunately, we don't see South Africa's name there in any of those years. But just an interesting one. I don't think we have to read too much into it. But since 2007, the first centurion of the World Cup, that team ultimately went on to win the World Cup. Very interesting. Will it be New Zealand this year? I don't know. I would like to hear what you guys have to say, and let's discuss. So without further ado, let's get the scorecards up and have a look and dissect that New Zealand and England game that happened yesterday. I would like to talk a little bit about Ravindra, the lefty from New Zealand, who looked absolutely fantastic yesterday. And I don't know if you've guys seen that meter of consistency or the control. His was right up to 91%, even better than Conway. That means he didn't make a lot of mistakes. He was all in control of his game, knocking the singles, knowing when to go for that boundary, shot selection to the tee, and just all out fantastic knock from him. It's also not very usual for him to bat up the order like that at number 3. I haven't seen him bat at 3. And after losing that early wicket, obviously he was under a lot of pressure, and he came out and played a wonderful knock and a wonderful partnership with Conway. There we see the scorecard. England 282, which I thought was not enough. Very unlike England to collapse like that in the middle towards the back end of the innings. They have so much firepower in the batting lineup. We see Besto and Malan got a decent start. Root controlled the innings and then got out at exactly the wrong time. That's when you do not want to get out, because look at that batting lineup to follow. Brook, Ali, Butler, Livingston, Curran, Wokes, Rashid. These guys bat all the way down. And I'm not surprised to see double figures from 1 to 11. I think that's the first time it's ever happened. We'll have to look that up. Very interesting that everyone got in, but no one got a big 100 for England. And that's where they came up short in that game. Unfortunately, I think this is the area where they lost the game. They should have cruised past 300, which would have added a lot of pressure on New Zealand with that new ball when they were batting. Unfortunately, that pressure wasn't there. They were in no rush whatsoever and could just play what they saw on the night. So yes, Josh Butler captain there. No Stokes yet. Very interesting that as well. I'm sure we'll see him pretty soon. And Kevin Peterson obviously predicted seeing Harry Brook in that first World Cup game. He predicted that about 2-3 months ago. And incredible how all that just worked out. And obviously Jason Roy missing out, and whoop, there we see Harry Brook's name in the very first game of the World Cup. But they will be disappointed, England. They will be hurting a bit. This is not the start they wanted, defending the title. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it can break your confidence. So we'll see what happens there. And Conway and Ravindra, there we see that headline, Conway and Ravindra hand England a thumping to kick off the World Cup. And that's exactly what happened. Devon Conway, 152 of 121 balls, and Ravindra, 123 of 96 balls. And as I mentioned, that Ravindra knock, that control factor, 91%. That is incredibly high, guys. I'm not making a lot of mistakes. Shot selection to the tee, running between the wickets. That includes your whole innings and the amount of mistakes you make, play and misses, and if you are in control of what you're doing out there or not. And 91% is pretty high, and it's a wonderful knock for a man who got this opportunity up the order. So well done to him. The bowlers, no one really stands out there. Obviously, just the 1 wicket from Curran. Other than that, they're all pretty economically not too bad, not too good either. A lot of things to think about for England, and they will certainly be worried after their first game they lose there. And New Zealand will be over the moon. They come back after that World Cup final disappointment in England in 2019. We all remember that game is one of the greatest ODIs of all time, and that in a final of a World Cup. So England obviously had a lot of pain after that. And a lot of those guys who played in 2019 were here still in this game. So they will be happy that they turned that around and got a little bit of revenge on the English who knocked them out. And then today, I mentioned that briefly earlier, Pakistan and the Netherlands. That's kicking off in around about 3 hours. That's going to be interesting to watch. We know Netherlands are quite a dangerous team. I did go through their team not so long ago. There's some very handy cricketers in there who can cause an upset, certainly against some of the big teams. And they're playing at the Rajiv Gandhi International Stadium in Hyderabad. It will be nice and hot and humid over there this time of the year. We saw the guys sweating it out there yesterday, so I'm expecting nothing less from the Hyderabad wicket. But Babar Azam with Pakistan up against the Netherlands, and the Netherlands definitely the underdogs here, but they will be looking for an upset. Let's see what happens in that game in not so long. I was planning to do a little bit of a build-up into this game. I'm too far out now because I changed the time. My wife and I are in Cape Town on a church camp or conference for every nation, and we're just having a little bit of fun, touching base with our marriage and with where we are in life. I think it's always important for relationships, for a couple, to just touch base and have a look at your foundation again. You know, are the foundations strong, and is this still in place for the long term? That's what we're doing here, and ultimately touching base with our Heavenly Father, which we love doing. Without further ado, let's move on then to the questions for this week. I see the questions are coming in. Please keep asking your questions. Drop it down in the descriptions box, and I'll be taking as many as I can. Sorry, I'm touching my hair. I'm having a bit of a bad hair day. Slow out of the bed. Can the Netherlands make an upset in this World Cup? I think they certainly can. They have in all the other World Cups caused upsets. We know they knocked South Africa out in the T20 World Cup in Australia. They had that incredible win. When was that? 2020. We'll pull that up. I can't remember the exact date. But they have upset a lot of big teams in the past. And that one against South Africa certainly hurt us. And just to come back to that control factor before I keep going with your question here, Conway's control factor was 81 versus Ravindra's 91. Just an interesting stat. And we know how in control Conway always is when he's batting. It shows you how good a knock Ravindra's was. But yes, the Netherlands, the Dutch, the Orange Army, whatever you want to call them, I know they're a very fiery team, a lot of characters, and they'll be coming out to try and win that game. Will they start off on a good note against a very strong Pakistan team? And the problem for the Netherlands is when they don't play well, they generally get bowled over, and the Pakistan bowling attack is one of the best in the world. So if they can get runs on the board, that's the Netherlands team now. Perhaps maybe decide to bat first, take it easy, just get a good total on there, and then squeeze. That's generally how they win most of the games, put the batting order under pressure. Runs on the board for them, always important. I don't know if they have the firepower in the bowling attack to squeeze Pakistan at the back end. So that's what I would do if I was in the Netherlands camp, purely because the Pakistan bowling attack is so strong. Thank you, Anupam, for that very nice question there. And then funny enough, I remember I mentioned earlier England against New Zealand, that the whole England side had double figures. I've never seen that in my life before. And the New Zealand batting team who won the game didn't have one double figure batter. Just the two triples and a duck there. So very interesting. Sarvesh, thank you very much for your question. Henry always gets under the radar with Southee and Bolt performing well. Yesterday, he had the lead. He led the pace attack for the Kiwis. How will you rate him, AB? I always like players like that, Matt Henry. I've always rated him. And you're 100% right. He flies under the radar with Southee and Bolt there. I must add, it's more often than not, those bowlers really enjoy that the spotlight is not on them. A lot of bowlers, I think of someone like a Morne Morkel, perhaps, who always sort of bowled after Steyn and Philander, especially in the test arena. That takes a little bit of pressure off, especially when you have two stalwarts there. You know what you're capable of, but sometimes it's good for you to get a little bit of pressure away, you know. So I think Southee and Bolt would take a lot of pressure off of Matt Henry, and flying under radar might just suit him very well. And, well, he did very well yesterday. I think he deserves more credit than he gets, so I'll agree with you there. He's a wonderful bowler. I played against him on numerous occasions. He gets good shape on the ball, good pace, and he never stops. He's a very fit guy who always runs in, and he just keeps coming at you. And you guys know I discussed that in length. I rate bowlers who keep coming and keep competing. Thanks for that, Sarvesh. Guys, keep asking your questions, please. Let me have a time check. 20 to 30 minutes left. So let's see how many questions we can cover, and keep playing around with your topics. I'm free to talk about anything, but particularly the World Cup. What changes do you think England needs to make after that first loss? I don't think a lot, maybe just a mental change for them. And I think we'll might have to see Stokes in there now. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't see the build-up. I was flying to Cape Town as the game kicked off. I'm not sure if Stokes was injured or still just rested. But he certainly needs to come in. They need the experience of a Ben Stokes. And I don't think they need to make a lot of changes. When they play on a wicket, when they bat first on a wicket like Ahmedabad again, you know you need to get good runs. You need to get a big total on the board. They slipped up in the middle over. So it's more mental thing than anything else. They can have a look at their shot selection, where they went wrong, why they felt pressure in those middle overs towards the back end. And I'm sure they can fix it. It's a wonderful English team. I must say, when I went down that list earlier, I was thinking to myself, how are you actually going to beat this team? Yes, they slipped up against New Zealand yesterday, but there's no doubt in my mind they will be back. The long and the short, to answer your question, identify moments in the game. And I think Joe Root, being at the wicket on 77 in the middle overs, possibly could have identified that a little bit better. Got out to sort of a part-timer in Phillips. And I think that's where the game was lost. If Root could hold it together there for them, being in on 77, there's no excuse getting out there. I've been in that situation many times before. I've also got it wrong in the situations many times before, ultimately costing the boys. And sitting in the change room afterwards, I would always think to myself, that was my fault. Take learning, don't do it again. And that's what England need to do. Take learning from those middle overs, understand the moments, identify moments where you just can't afford to lose a wicket. Yes, we're playing Bears ball and we want to be very attacking and aggressive, but there's a time and a place for everything. Thank you, Samart. I think England will be back, guys. There's no doubt about that. They will be contenders. AB, when and how did you come up with your 360-degree playing style? It's a good question. It's something that's sort of happened naturally to me. It certainly comes from the inside, a huge desire and a hunger and a passion to want to change games of cricket. Not the game of cricket, to be in a moment for my team where I'm the reason why the momentum shifted. From a very young age, I wanted that. I remember in most of my primary school years, I had that mindset. But there was a particular moment when I was 19. I was playing for our domestic side, the Titans at the time, and there was a 4-day or 3-day warm-up game. And at the end, we needed, I think, 180 runs of 20 overs. I was batting out there with Faf du Plessis at the time. And Dave Nosworthy, the coach, called the game off and said, that's it. It's both captains shake hands. There's no need to keep playing. Let's go to the nets maybe. And I went up to him and said, Coach, please, can we have a look at this total? I think it's possible. And he said, please, just do me a favor. We need to go have a meeting and we'll come back tomorrow and practice for the 4-day game coming up on the weekend. But that's where my mindset has always been. Is I've always seen the bright side in situations, no matter how bad it was. And actually, the worse the situation, the more excited I became. So 180 of 20 overs, Faf and I got pretty close, knocking the ball around. The fielders started spreading. The game got easier. We turned the whole momentum around on the day. And the coach came to me afterwards and said that was pretty special. And I like that kind of mindset. Never lose that. So it's a mindset more than anything else. It comes from the inside, from your heart. How much do you want it? The desire to want to win games and to turn momentum into your team's favor. So thanks for that question. Moving on to the next one then. Keep posting your questions, guys. Having a lot of fun here. It's the second day of the ICC Cricket World Cup for the men's. We can't wait to see Team India out there as well. South Africa, Australia, Sri Lanka, they're all still got to play. Many other teams. Rishi, how much hours did you practice when you were playing for South Africa? That depends. That changed from season to season. I think when I was younger, I trained a lot harder. As I got older, I trained a lot smarter. So I would say for South Africa, the net sessions would be between 3 to 4 hours. And that would be broken up with a bit of fitness, fielding work, some meetings, and also in the nets. So out batting specific, I think that's actually what you're referring to. I would not work longer than like an hour, hour and a half at most on a day. Sometimes a lot less, like 20 to 30 minutes if I had to work on something particular. But I always felt like I never really wanted to become sluggish in training sessions. And I always wanted to make sure that my focus is like match intensity and my execution is like I'm playing a match. And the pressure. So I would always hook up these competitions in the nets or challenges with Dale Steyn, with Morne Morkel, Philander. The list goes on. And I would always really not want to lose my wicket. So it was very challenging. They knew it because I told them, try and get me out. I want to feel the pressure. I want to feel balls flying past my ears. I want it to be match-like, you know. So I think that's the most important thing. Quality over quantity. That was only towards the back end of my career. There was a stage where it was important to do quantity, to hit a lot of balls, to just drill my technique, to really work on the cover drive for hours, to hit straight drives, to hit pulls, get someone just to throw balls at my head for an hour and just make sure I start feeling comfortable with a short ball. So early 20s, definitely quantity over quality. And then that changed since I started feeling more comfortable at the wicket with my technique around 2008. And I started spending more time practicing smarter instead of just hitting balls. Thank you very much, Rishi. It's a good question, that. Just remember, everyone is different. And you got to figure out what works for you. I've mentioned this before on the show. Figure out your strengths and your weaknesses. And take that into the nets. Just maximize your strengths in the nets and find a way to minimize your weaknesses by training smartly and figuring out ways with your technique where you can get better. Thanks for that. Moving on to the next one. Scrolling through the comments here, there's some good questions. Thank you very much for these good questions, guys. Why does Quinton de Kock struggle versus left-arm seamers? He had a tough time versus Bolt in the warm-up match as well. I won't say that it's a weakness. Maybe in that one game, yes, against Bolt. Bolt is a wonderful bowler. We know he gets a lot of swing. I think it's a really good question because Quinton doesn't face a lot of left-armers. That's maybe one of the reasons. Well, not a lot of batters in the world face a lot of left-armers because there are more right-arm bowlers in the cricketing world. That might change in the next 20 to 30 years. But for now, it's maybe just something Quinton doesn't see very often. And especially not this kind of quality. Maybe like a Wabrias who doesn't swing it as much. Quinton will be more comfortable against. I don't know, but I won't call it a weakness just on one game. We'll keep analyzing that throughout the tournament. So thanks for making me aware of that. I think Quinny's a fantastic player. He makes the game look easy. He makes the bowlers look slow. That's always the quality of a high quality individual batter, that is. Moving on to the next one then. So what do you think Shaheen Afridi is more important than Babar Azam? What's your opinion, love, from Pakistan? Do I think Afridi is more important than Babar? That's a tough question to answer. I think they both play their roles. Babar, obviously, with the bat in hand and as captain, he's got a huge role to play for Team Pakistan. Shaheen Afridi brings the passion, the fire, the pace with the ball in hand, that competitive edge. I absolutely love the man. I played with him at Lahore Qalandars and really enjoyed his personality and his approach to the game of cricket. He's a wonderful player and he's going to win a lot of games in the future for Pakistan. the Pakistan fans will be hoping most of those games that he wins for Pakistan will happen in this year's World Cup. But yes, they're both fantastic players. I can't really pick one because they play different roles and they don't really go up head on head against each other. But yes, both incredible players. Thanks for that question, Asad. Obviously a big Pakistan fan, and we'll see how they go today. Sai, thanks for that. Really appreciate it. Can you talk about your mindset during the counter-attack innings against India, where you attacked a lethal booby in South Africa in 2018 test matches? I can't remember playing that knock. It's very interesting. I thought you were going to talk about a white ball innings. 2018 test matches. I remember Booby getting me out at the Wanderers. I don't really remember batting too well in that series, except for maybe Supersport Park in the final one, where I batted pretty well on a very tough wicket with Bumrah, Booby, and a few guys running in there. But where I did play a really good knock against Booby was at the Wankhede Stadium, and I think that was in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. I scored one of my favorite ODI 100s there. We got over 400. It was the must-win game. It was 2-2 against India in Mumbai, and we got more than 400 and won that game convincingly and the series. And I remember hitting Booby for a few sixes in that match. He's a wonderful bowler, very skillful, shapes the ball both ways. So he always keeps the batters on their toes. And if you're not in 100% control of your technique, Boovy's the kind of guy that's going to expose that, which he did to me at the Wanderers, where he was lining me up with a few away swingers. I was letting it go, dragging me across. Ultimately, the one coming back, my head ended up like this when I was trying to hit a straight drive, missing out on the line, stumps all over the place. Never a nice sound for a batter at the back here when you hear those stumps fall. But yes, a lot of respect for Booby. He's always a down-to-earth, humble kind of guy, and I've always enjoyed playing against him. Moving on to the next one. Thanks, Sai. I hope that answers your question, because I wasn't sure about the 2018 test matches. I know we won that series, and that's what I remember. I don't remember scoring big because all the batters struggled in that series. So what do you think of this World Cup from a personal point of view with Aiden Markram? So, Aditya, thanks for that question. Luckily for South Africa, he found some form against Australia leading up to this World Cup. I think he's a wonderful player. He's one of my favorite batters to watch in the world. He's a very, very crucial batter for South Africa in this World Cup. He plays a big role, also a leadership role. We know he's been captain many times in the past for that S01E07 team as well, who won the World Cup. So yes, just a wonderful player. I think he's in good form. That's important, going into a World Cup, to be in good form. He's got a lot of firepower around him. I think South Africa, looking at that batting lineup, is one of the better batting lineups in the World Cup. Bavuma, Quinton de Kock, Rassie van der Dussen, Klaasen, Markram, Miller. That top six, people, is fire. Temba keeping it together up the order. Quinton always going after the bowlers. Rassie keeps it together again. Then you have Markram, who's smart, who can play both explosive innings, but also can hold it back for the team. And then firepower, Klaasen and Miller. I mean, that's a really good top six. We know Marco Jansen still can come down the order, hit some big sixes. But if those top six batters of South Africa are in form going into this World Cup and they score the bulk of the runs, we're going to be really contending for this World Cup. So Markram plays a big role, and hopefully he'll score a lot of runs in that middle order for South Africa. Moving on to the next one, I think South Africa's game is on Sunday against Sri Lanka, so keep an eye out for that. And with next week's 360 show, we'll be covering and analyzing a lot of those games. And as I said, with my next live show, I think it'll be next Friday. We'll check out who's playing. Maybe I'll change it from Friday to another day, but I would like to get a bit closer to the game, maybe have a look at the toss, put the team list up, and we'll cover some of the teams like that, especially when India's playing Pakistan, some of the bigger teams, England and Australia. I'd like to give you guys a little bit more insight as the game is happening. I'll maybe get the television screen on and we'll have a bit of fun. All right. Can team who have played most players playing in the IPL have an upper hand like India? I think so. I think of Team England immediately, Australia as well, South Africa to a lesser extent, but certainly England and Australia, I think, have a huge advantage over other teams. I think all their players have in some way played in the IPL before. Maybe there's one or two exceptions, but it certainly helps. Team India, as a whole, cricket in India have had huge benefit because of the IPL since 2008. So that's more from an infrastructure point of view. But looking at the Cricket World Cup itself, I think those three teams, India, England, and Australia, have the biggest upper hand when it comes to experienced players, purely because of the IPL. So thank you, IPL. Thanks for helping Team South Africa also get good experience over there in India. It's changed people's lives, not just from a financial point of view, but from a cricketing point of view, being exposed to the best cricket around the world, sitting in the team room and in a team bus with some of the best players in the world from different countries. What a great privilege for a youngster. And there was a great privilege for me in 2008 when I joined the Delhi Daredevils to sit next to someone like a Glenn McGrath, Dan Vittori, Telly Dilshan, the list goes on, Shoaib Malik. It was just a fantastic experience and a great time in my life. And I took the opportunity with both hands just to learn. I didn't play a lot in 2008 and 2010, but I just learned. I just took it all in and kept my eyes open and realized what I should be doing to make it at that level. So the IPL certainly helps a lot, and Team India right at the top of that list when it comes to experience in the IPL. Obviously playing most of the cricket in India throughout the year as well. So they are the hosts, they are the favorites, they're number one in the world. They'll be feeling the pressure, but I still back them to go, if not all the way, at least the final. All right, moving on to the next one. Thanks, Prathem. Karan, hey, AB, in the 90s and early 2000 era, they were exceptional specialist players from Warne, Sachin, Kallis, the list goes on. But in today's DNA, because of too much cricket, has quality been compromised? That's an interesting question. I think the game has changed. It's not so much, I think you are maybe misunderstanding or misinterpreting the fact that the game changed. So the game was a lot slower in the 90s. There was a lot more focus on players who had control. I think of a Kallis, you talk about Warne, Sachin as well. There was control, and there was huge players who had a lot of focus on them because they could play the ultimate form of the game, which is Test cricket. There's a lot less Test cricket these days, but the game has changed. It's got a lot faster. Skills are defined differently these days, I think. It's the guys who can score a 200-plus strike rate, 100 in T20s, even in ODIs we see that. It's bowlers who can have incredible change-ups when they're under pressure and the batters are coming after them, but also having their tail up when the ball is moving around and the bowling team is on top or have the momentum. So yes, you talk about those guys, and their numbers will probably look better in the format because there were no T20s played in those days. So their test numbers will be higher. They played more test matches and more ODIs than the guys are playing these days. Now there's a lot of T20 tournaments around the world. You also have to fit in the T20 World Cups. So there's less time to get those thousands and thousands of runs in Test cricket. And that's why you would say Kallis, Sachin, Warne, those guys are absolute legends. And I'm not taking anything away from them. It's just a generational shift. And I think that's where you're missing a little bit of the information. The players of today are still incredible players, high quality, match-changing players. There's no doubt in my mind they certainly don't have less skills than a Sachin, Kallis, and a Warne from back in the day. There's just less Test cricket, less ODIs, and a lot of the focus is on T20s. Does it make them weaker players? No, by no means. It's just a generational change. But we can discuss that a bit more. I think it's quite a deep question, and we'll have to pull up more stats and records to have a look at, and then we can sort of compare. It's very difficult to compare different generations, 90s to the 2020s. I mean, the whole game changed. In the 90s, scoring over 400 in an ODI, that they never came close to that. It was not even a talking point. If you got 250 odd in a 50-over game, you were in the mix and you were very happy. Now, teams are getting 350, 370, and they think, like, is that enough? We don't know. So there you go. There's just one example of the game that changed and how it all impacted the players. Thanks, Karan. Next one then. Nihai, how good a bowler is Jasprit Bumrah? Oh, fire. What does he have that other bowlers do not have? Anything you want to share about on facing him? Yeah, just a wonderful player. I think we've had some really good run-ins with each other from a very young age to as he got more experience. So I see that shift in his skill and in his ability and in his experience. In the start, I didn't think much of him. There wasn't a lot of pace. I think he was mid-130s. I played him at the 1 so he was under pressure and I was getting him away. And not even a year or two later, I saw a different bowler running in, hitting in the mid-140 marks, having a bit of fire, in his belly, making eye contact with me, and I knew this challenge was on. I've had some incredible experiences batting against him. He's always on the money, hardly ever misses his length. I've had some good experiences, also some bad ones. I think of the Wankhede Stadium in a T20 game for RCB against Mumbai Indians, where I think I was on 70. It was a really good knock because the ball was moving around early on. We lost a lot of wickets, and I got through, got my 50, and I was on 70, and I was about to hit the fifth gear, and he out of nowhere decided to bounce me and hit me on my head, on the helmet. It was a big blow. I was a little bit off balance. I didn't see that coming, especially not at that pace. So he's that kind of bowler, and that stands out. He's always trying to stay one step ahead of the batter. He's not scared of trying things out. If he thinks a bouncer is the best ball to bowl at that time, he's going to do that. And that's why he's such an incredible bowler. He's competitive. He's not scared to back his skills, and he always asks good questions of the batters. So good question there, Nia. Thank you very much. Moving on there, guys. It's 8:30 in South Africa here. We're only about 2.5 hours away, I think, from that ODI between Pakistan and the Netherlands. Let's have a look here. Let me get you the exact number. And you guys must please watch. Stay tuned in. It's an hour and 58 minutes to the start of the Netherlands and the Pakistan game. So that's going to be very exciting. Can the Netherlands upset the Pakistan team, or will Pakistan be too strong? Tell me your thoughts on that game, and if you think the Netherlands can cause an upset. AB de Villiers, 17, Vineet. Can you share the best memory of yours here in India related to your biscotti Indian crowd? Yes, of course. Many good memories. Obviously playing in the IPL, but for South Africa as well, a lot of incredible ODIs. I think of that ODI win in 2016, I think it was, where we just got off the disappointing 2015 World Cup semi-final loss, where Grant Elliott hit that 6 to kick us out of the World Cup. That was really hurtful, and we had a point to prove in 2006 that we were still one of the best ODI teams in the world. We had a tour to India, and we beat India 3-2 with that incredible final game at the Wankhede Stadium, where we scored over 400. And that's a huge, memorable moment for me in my life and for the whole South African team, winning our first ODI series over there in India. Something at that time which we never accomplished. So there's one for you. And then from an RCB point of view, I think the 200 partnerships I had with Virat, one at the Wankhede Stadium and one at the Chinnaswamy, just very enjoyable. The one was in the Green Day, batting with Virat at the Chinnaswamy. I'm going to have to try and remember who we played against. I remember those blue and red kits, but they're not in the. I think that they're not in the IPL anymore. I can't remember which team it was, but no, we'll have a look at that. Maybe my team can help me out. And the other one was at the Wankhede Stadium, obviously with RCB playing against the Mumbai Indians. And that's the game I spoke about with a young Jasprit Bumrah running in there. And just a fantastic game, and I had a lot of fun. All right, that's two memories for you. Moving on to the next one, and almost the end of this live show, guys. I've got a church conference to attend to. If the Netherlands can survive the first 10 overs with a bat and cause damage with the ball, then they can win. I agree with that. I think the Netherlands should be looking to bat first. The biggest strength for the Pakistan team, I feel, is the bowling attack. They can really rip batters apart, batting lineups apart, and run through you quickly. So the Netherlands to bat first, get around 250, just get a total where you feel like, you know what, if we could get 2-3 quick wickets against Pakistan, they're going to be under huge pressure, especially wickets like Rizwan and Babar Azam. If they can run through that and then put that middle order under pressure, take a little bit of pace off the ball, slow the game down, it's very normal for a big team to start panicking in those moments. I've been part of that before, believe me. So yes, it's very unlikely for the Netherlands to win this game. Let me be straight. It's, in my opinion, 99% in Pakistan's favor. But if everything falls in place for the Netherlands, I feel bat first, get around 250, and just slow the game down and make Pakistan work for every run. Then they have that 1% chance. So yes, the Netherlands have never beaten Pakistan. I see a head-to-head. It's 6-0 in Pakistan's favor. So very unlikely for them to pull it off. And then, yes, interesting here. Second innings endurance, what he's probably talking about. Yeah, so I'm just reading some comments from my team here. They're trying to help me out with some stats that I get wrong. I don't know it all. I remember most games I played in, but they try and help me out when I say some silly stuff on here. It is live after all, and I'm only human. Has anybody ever sledged you? If yes, how did you reply? Oh my goodness, Samar. I can't say too much. I can't tell you what they said. I always replied with a bit of fire. I would try not to swear because I'm pretty sure you are aware of the fact that some foul language sometimes are used on the cricket pitch. But I think of guys like Mitchell Johnson, quite a few others that are quite aggressive on the wicket. Mitchell Johnson, by the way, and I are really good friends off the park. I never thought we would become friends, but we are. He's actually a very, very nice guy. But on the park, and I have a lot of respect for that, the two of us always had huge clashes. It was very heated, and some words were said out there. So he's one. And when I was a bit younger, a lot of, before I go on, I think of someone like Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad, always had something to say, but very clever. Sometimes some foul language, but not too bad. Generally speaking, it was always just to try and get into my head because they saw me as a threat, which ultimately is a compliment if you look at it like that. So that's how I countered it. I always felt like Australia came very hard at me, and I felt like, you know what, it's because they have respect for you and they see you as a threat. So take it as a compliment, use it to fire yourself up even more, because that was one of my biggest strengths. Some of my biggest innings I played was when I felt emotional at the wicket, when I felt attacked. I think of a test match, my last test match 100 at Port Elizabeth against Australia. They came incredibly hard at me. It was very personal, and I played the best knock of my life there, I think. Certainly one of top 5 best knocks of my life. I didn't make a mistake. I think if we had to take the control factor we spoke about earlier of Ravindra, my control factor must have been close to 100% in that game. I just didn't make a mistake. My eyes were incredibly open. My awareness was 200%. Instincts, everything was up purely because Cummins and Hazelwood, Steve Smith, David Warner came really hard at me. They were always in my ear, on the pitch, around me, in my space. And that just sort of flicked the switch for me and really got me going. And I played one of the best test innings of my life. So yes, I would always, to come back to your question, always reply with body language. I have said some bad stuff as well. I'm only human, I must admit. I wasn't always an angel on the park. But generally speaking, I never really enjoyed getting involved with a heated conversation while I was batting. But I would put out my chest, I would make eye contact, and I would send a message that I am here today, and you better get me out because I'm going to win this game for my team if you don't. That would be my message without really talking. And what comes to mind is Pat Cummins bowling to me in Cape Town, in Newlands, the same series, and that's the test match where we went up 2-1 against Australia. But Pat Cummins was in my ear that game, and I remember cutting a 6 over the covers in a test match, and he was in my face, and that was my moment where I turned back and he realized, hold on, this guy's awake today. So yes, keep asking your questions, guys. I'm going to take 1 or 2 more, and then we're going to move on. I will be releasing a 360 show next week where we'll be analyzing in depth a lot of interesting stuff, but there will also be a live show that I'm going to be doing closer to that live game. I'm not sure which game it will be. I will update you guys on social, so keep an eye out on my social media platforms or profile and or posts rather, and I will update you on all the information. There it is at the bottom of the screen. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and also X, and I'll keep you guys up to date. We're going to be covering a lot of interesting stuff in this World Cup, and we'll be having a lot of fun. There it is, AB de Villiers 17. Also, if you don't mind, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification to stay updated with all the shows that will be upcoming. Let's make it the last question then. One more, the team, Dale Craig, September. Do you think the Proteas have what it takes to win the World Cup this year? Absolutely, I do. So I do think so. I did allude to the fact that I feel we have the best top 6 in the tournament, if not the best top 2, top 3 maybe. There's a lot of firepower, but with that comes a lot of pressure. We need 300 plus scores, more often than not. So they know that. And there's a lot of games in this tournament. We play against everyone. I love this format, by the way, of the tournament. The only thing I would like to see the ICC introduce is a bonus point for the losing team and the winning team. Hopefully they'll introduce that. I think it brings out positive cricket. That's the reason. I see it in the Rugby World Cup. I see teams going for tries to get that bonus point. But then the losing team who's behind always keeps fighting, because if they lose within 7-point margin, they also get a bonus point. So it encourages positive sport, positive play. And I would like to see that in the World Cup as well. So for a team like the Netherlands, maybe losing to someone on the day, it still encourages them not to give up. Keep going, try and lose by a small margin so we get a bonus point. Something to think about. Sorry to come back to your question. The top 6 of the Proteas really excites me, but there's pressure on them to score the runs. If they get the runs on the board, it'll take a lot of pressure off the bowlers. And I feel it's really important to get Shamsi playing all the games. I know Maharaj is the consistent one with the control. I think they will lean towards him as the frontline spinner. But will Shamsi lose out to someone like a Ngidi or to a Janssen? I'm not sure. We'll have to. There's a little bit of a balance issue there. We'll analyze that a bit closer. We'll see what the Proteas do when they run out against Sri Lanka. It's not so long anymore, and we'll find out how our form's looking after that Aussie series. It looked good, and we come in with a bit of confidence. But I do see, and I'm going to make this call again, I did mention it before, South Africa, India in the final of the World Cup. There's no reason why not. We saw yesterday England's beatable. They're not invincible. They are the defending champs. All the teams are beatable. It's quite an open World Cup. I think that final will be incredible, though. South Africa, India in the final. Hopefully, South Africa playing a good one then and lifting that trophy. Thanks for that, Dale. And thank you, everyone, for joining in on this week's 360 Live. I will be updating you with everything that's coming. We'll be doing that show in the week, and we're going to be having a lot of fun. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification, and thank you very much for joining on 360 Live for this week. Until next week, then.